Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona, and today I'm going to show you guys my latest acquisition, and that is the 2002 Tool Anima Classic Records 200 gram test pressing. Now, normally I show you guys these new additions to my collection in a standalone video. I put it out maybe once every week or two, to where I take some of the more important key titles that I got that week, and I show them to you and I talk about it. But this is a big deal. It is a record that I've had on my Discogs want list for 10 years. It's been a record that has been egregiously expensive no matter when I've looked at it. I remember 10 years ago, it was going for like $700-800 and maybe $1,000, and you would see originals, at the time were maybe $300. So to pay that kind of money just never made sense. So every now and then a copy came up, but I just never wanted to pony up the money. Maybe 3 or 4 copies have came out over that period, the last 10 years. But I've always kind of wondered about this record. It's a Classic Records test pressing. What's the story? Some people said it was a bootleg. Some people said it was going to be released as a standalone title and it was scrapped. But you don't really know concrete what it was or what it could have been, or you need the record in your hand. So finally, this past couple of weeks, 2 popped up. One popped up on Discogs for some odd $5,000 almost, maybe it was the high 4s. And then another copy popped up on eBay. Now the copy that popped up on eBay was the original RTI test pressing from 1996. This is the 200 gram Classic Records test pressing from 2002. Apparently the story is with this record is Classic is the one who originally cut the record. But now according to Discogs, it was done at Gateway Mastering. There's almost no information on the dead wax other than the category or the product code, actually what you see there. Keep in mind it doesn't say 200 gram on it. But the dead wax says 72445-11087. So don't really know, couldn't really tell. Now, Michael Hobson, founder of Classic Records, was known to make huge amounts of test pressings, to the point that they weren't test pressings, they were manufactured collectibles. But this is on the rarer side of even Classic Records test pressings. According to Discogs, 23 people have this record, 1,000 people want it. The test pressing that was on eBay, about 1,000 people want it. I think 27 people had it. So if you can believe Discogs, this is the rarer of the two, which for Classic Records seems unlikely, but we're going to go with it. Anyways, I put an offer in on the copy that was on Discogs, and $3,000. I think it was like $3,000, 3,000 something, around $3,000. Put an offer in. Copy pops up on eBay. A whole week goes by, the copy on eBay. I put a bid in. I put a huge bid on that one. I think I bid $2,200, $2,300 aside. And in typical fashion, the person who listed it put disc 1 and disc 2 together, are separate. So you had to win both. Anyways, I lost disc 1. Disc 2 went, so I think it went for $2,400 for disc 1. I was the second bidder on that, and disc 2 went like $2,700, $2,800, so almost $5,000. But a couple days later, the guy who had this listed on Discogs accepted my $3,000 offer. And actually, when I lost the Discog or the eBay listing, I was a little bit relieved. I was like, could have got a really good Blue Note title for that, but the guy accepted my Discogs offer, and I stand behind what I offer. So I got it, and it was sealed. So let me tell you more about it and what I found and how does it sound. So first of all, 200 gram vinyl. Examining the two. Now keep in mind I got a couple of these. I'll use this as an opportunity to show off. I've got an original, beautiful VG plus, VG strong VG plus copy, VG plus cover. Slight little crease here. This is about as clean as this copy is ever going to get. This is, if you're going to open up a new copy, this is what would be inside. They were in paper sleeves. They were never you know, audiophile mint. You know, they never look like JVC Super Vinyl from the 80s. They were never that clean. But this is my play copy. I also have a beautiful sealed copy. And the coolest thing about this sealed copy is it comes with the original receipt from Warehouse Records in Mesa, Arizona. It was on 1350 South Longmore. It was purchased very few days after the record came out on vinyl on September 24th, 1996 at $3.30 for a retail price of $10.99, brought down from the regular retail, which was $12.99. I had to keep this. Such a cool historic copy with the original receipt, and unlike a lot of vintage records with receipts in them, this was in the very early days of computers for receipts, to where it actually lists the record as a NEMA. So how cool is that, to where you can pin the actual date that this was purchased, so you can really narrow it down as far as what pressing it is. So first thing I did is I took them out and I compared it, and I kind of gleaned the information that I suspected all along, which was this is an exact repress of the original pressing. Came with a few marks out of the packaging from Classic, because Classic, in their infinite wisdom, was nice enough to take this record and put it in this wonderful paper sleeve. But yeah, there is, but again, it was speculated that this was a bootleg. There's been people on forums online and elsewhere who have talked about the fact that this was actually purchased on Classic Records website / The Music, which was another website of theirs, direct from them in the latest 2000s for around $400 is what they were charging for the first go around of this. It's not a counterfeit, and it's not a counterfeit because A, it has the identical to the T matrix information, to where every little character lines up perfectly. The way the C is drawn with the little embellishment at the top of the letter, to every dash, to every slant, it is a carbon copy from one another. Now, yes, this can be achieved. You can actually make records from other vinyl records. But what you cannot generally do in that process is make a significantly better sounding record. And this is. And it's significantly better sounding because of the lower quality vinyl / pressing quality of the original Tool NEMA. So, what do I got here for my $3,000? I essentially have don't get me wrong, it is unbelievably killer sounding. But this is, maybe it was made as a test pressing, but for all intensive purposes, this is probably just a collectible-ish type thing made by Classic Records. Or maybe it was made by Classic Records in a little bit larger quantity than normal, thinking that the original would come out shortly thereafter, and then they would sell test pressings. And that's kind of what they did. So that seems highly likely to me. Now, the benefit and the reason they did it is because test pressings are generally the first ones off the stamper when the stamper is in its peak shape, and they typically yield the best sounds. That's why people like white label promos and test pressings. That's the main reason audiophiles look for those records. Collectors look for them for a different reason. But audiophiles look for those test pressings because they typically yield better fidelity, and a lot of times they're made on higher quality vinyl because they're made in lower batch runs. So maybe this was a test pressing that was going to be sold later on once the record came out. Either way, the record never came out. And what we have here is a 200 gram, and I'll show you, I'll take a record out. Essentially what we have here is a 200 gram Classic Records test pressing. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of mark right there. Popped twice, unfortunately. But this is one of those records that has a lot of quiet parts. And the originals are just so noisy. Compared to a modern audiophile record. I guess for a Tool record, you know, you wouldn't think of it as much. But comparatively, they're on the noisy side. And those quiet parts, it's a little bit distracting. I gotta say, that is not the case with this. Great sounding record. The original Anima was always a killer sounding record. I'm assuming from what I've heard, it was actually cut directly from the analog tape. And if it's true, the myth, what they say, that Classic Records actually had a hand in it, and it wasn't done at Gateway, that seems even more likely that it was done from the analog tape. Let me show you the disc. I don't know how the camera makes it out. But you can see even a beautifully unclean or virtually unplayed copy. I mean, this might have been one that I opened from new, because I had a couple of them over the years. And because of the manufacturing and the paper sleeve, they're a lot of paper scuffs, marks, and they were just noisier records then, but that was the 90s. Although the 90s records go for egregious amounts of money, they were never really high quality records being put out in the 90s. For the most part, they were on the lower quality side. So yeah, this is it. Unfortunately, this is the only pressing legitimately of this record that exists. It has never been repressed. If you have a colored vinyl variant or anything else, you've got a bootleg. Never been officially repressed. So, I don't have to do a shootout, but if I was to do a shootout, this would be the best sounding one. It's such a crime in the vinyl world that this record has not been redone. Maynard himself owns a record store in Arizona, about 2 hours north of here. I don't know why a guy who's apparently a fan of vinyl, he owns a vinyl record store, does not do a little more to put his record into print for vinyl enthusiasts. I know I would do it. I think anybody else who was a fan of vinyl records would go the extra mile and do what it took to get it put into production. What the hell's going on? I don't know. But as it stands, boy, this Classic Records 200 gram disc really sounds killer. A big improvement really over the standard press. Unlike the Dark Side of the Moon 30th anniversary RTI test pressing, which everybody came out and said was so many, steps above the European pressed version that ended up coming to market. When I did a comparison of those two, there was virtually no difference. I mean, it was so close. That's not really the case. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this purchase. It's cool to be able to just tick something off on my Discogs want list that, when I go on there, it says that I've been wanting this record for, almost a decade. So that is kind of cool. And time has a really good way of making you think about these purchases in a more positive way. 10 years from now, this will be one of those records, knock on wood, that, I'll see trading hands for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, and I'll be able to say, oh, I bought that for $3,000. I thought I was crazy at the time. I'm glad I did that. That has happened many, many times to me over the last 20 years. Now, granted, vinyl's been on an upswing for 20 years. Hopefully, we don't have a downswing trend, but that doesn't really seem to be the case. From what I see day to day on the ground in the store, vinyl is more popular than ever. A whole new clientele is finding it, and I don't think most of them are going to give it up. But yeah, there it is, the Tool Anima test pressing 200 and 200 gram vinyl, and the standard pressing. If one of those 1996 test pressings ever fall on my lap, I'll probably have it just to complete kind of the series. But as it stands now, it is the most valuable Tool record I have ever seen. The Classic Records test pressings, in conjunction with the 96 RTI test pressings, have the record for the two most expensive Tool records ever sold. So I think that'll change though, and I just think future versions of this will be the new record holder. But yeah, crazy purchase. But yeah, check us out online at theingroove.com. Until next time.